You may have heard hunters or long-range rifle shooters refer to scopes as being first focal plane or second focal plane. Or maybe you just got your first rifle scope and you have no idea what a focal plane is. There are many videos that try to explain this, some make it more confusing, some are great but long-winded. I'm going to try to provide a simple and practical explanation. All variable power rifle scopes are either first focal plane or second focal plane. This can also be referred to as front focal plane or rear focal plane. Yes, there are a couple dual focal plane models that combine these technologies, but I've never actually seen one in a store or in the field. Focal plane has nothing to do with the diopter adjustment. This is just how you focus your reticle. Focal plane also has nothing to do with your parallax adjustment. Many scopes don't even have a parallax adjustment dial. Focal plane has nothing to do with your windage or elevation adjustment dials. So what is it? Every rifle scope has three critical points of focus to consider: the target, the reticle, and your eye. To understand this concept, it is helpful to not think about the scope as a whole, but to think about the reticle. A scope has either a first focal plane reticle or a second focal plane reticle. A first focal plane scope visually locks the reticle image to the target end of the scope. This way, as you zoom in or out on the target, the reticle zooms in and out the same amount, meaning your reticle is always scaled the same in reference to your target, but not to your eye. A second focal plane scope visually locks the reticle image to your eye. This way, when you zoom in or out, the reticle image is consistent and does not change size, meaning your reticle always looks the same regardless of your magnification setting. What if your scope has just a plain crosshair? There's no way to tell if it's first focal plane or second focal plane. This means it's probably a fixed power scope or a second focal plane, as there would be no advantage to a first focal plane when the reticle has no subtensions. What are the pros and the cons of a first focal plane scope? Pro: the measurements in your scope are always accurate in reference to your target. It does not matter if you're zoomed all the way in, all the way out, or somewhere in between. They always mean the same thing and can always be used accurately. Con: first focal plane scopes are often more expensive. They're becoming a lot more popular in the US, but are still less common than the second focal plane hunting scopes found in most sporting goods stores. Con: because the reticle scales as you zoom in and out, it could become really chunky when zoomed all the way in, or it could become really thin and practically disappear when zoomed all the way out. What are the pros and cons of a second focal plane scope? Pro: your reticle always looks the same. You never have to worry about your crosshair getting too thin or too chunky. Pro: these scopes are readily available and often quite a bit cheaper. Con: the subtensions in your scope are only accurate at a specific magnification setting, usually the maximum magnification, but not always. This could mean a huge miss if you zoom out and try to use your reticle to measure your holdover. When should you use a first focal plane scope and when should you use a second focal plane scope? Many people pick only one style or the other and stick with it. I use both, but in very specific instances. For long-range precision shooting, I prefer first focal plane. It helps me hold over properly or measure my target or any other object with my reticle. Regardless of my magnification setting, I know I'm measuring accurately. You can use a second focal plane reticle for long-range precision shooting, but only if you are religious about keeping your magnification on only the calibrated setting and never zooming in or out beyond it. Or if you only use your turrets to make adjustments and not your reticle. Many bench rest shooters prefer second focal plane for single distance matches. You can use a very fine crosshair for maximum accuracy without worrying about it ever changing size. If you sight in your rifle for point blank range where you never have to dial, then second focal plane is all you need. What is point blank range, you may ask? I'll cover that in another video. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss it. If your reticle has just a crosshair, a dot, a circle, a diamond, or anything that does not have a measurement system, then there is no advantage to a first focal plane, unless you just want to see your reticle change sizes. If you have a fixed power scope, meaning it does not zoom, this discussion does not even apply. Your reticle is locked to your eye and to your target image at all times. Hopefully this helped you learn the difference between a first focal plane and a second focal plane scope, and to better understand the advantages and disadvantages of each design. Until next time, stay safe, be free, and never stop seeking adventure.